Hello, welcome to this video. Um, First off, I want to say thanks to Mr. Lou Vega down here for these wonderful charts. Anybody can go to his website, it's listed right down there, and pull his charts and use them. Very great guy. Emailed him and requested permission to use charts and videos, and no issues. So big thanks to Mr. Lou Vega for putting all this together for us to see. Um, if you've seen my other videos and on Earth the Spirit Warrior, it would specifically the videos I'm talking about would be God's Timeline, Signs and the Stars, Part 1 and 2. If you have not seen those, you probably want to watch those first, at least those two first, prior to coming to this one here. This one's going to be talking about this triad right here. And you kind of have to know what this is all about, this tetrad here. Each one of these are all lunar eclipses up here on the top, right through here. And these are all solar eclipses, different types. You have a hybrid, which is right here. You have annulars, which is right here. You have total, which is an example one right here, and partial all through here, the yellow and red. What we have is this tetrad, it's called. Um, these fall exactly on Jewish feast days. This one, and this one, this one. This one's on Passover, Sukkot, and this is Sukkot, this is Passover again, and this is Sukkot again, between 2014 2015. And this is pretty prophetic. The last time this happened, the Israelites captured Jerusalem. And then the time before that, they occupied Israel. So they got their land, and then they got their capital, and some believe, me included, think that they will get their temple during this time frame. And if you read the Bible, you know that happens during the tribulation. So take that timeline for what it's worth. We're rapidly approaching this time right here, 2014, and if you've seen the news and you see the mass animal deaths, you see the strange weather, the earthquakes that we're having, in other words, put two and two together, this is significant, very significant. To boot, this solar eclipse right here is a hybrid, and it's pretty rare. I think the last one, I'd have to look at his chart, but I believe the last one was in the 80s, maybe 90s. Um, but pretty rare. Anyway, what I'm going to focus on is this right here, this triad. And we have symmetrical triad here and another one here. I believe this being the finale from the tribulation, and this being a warning of the coming tribulation. And what I did is I broke down the months down here, and I looked at news, and I looked at what happened, and I looked at the 11/11/11 phenomena. So if you don't know anything about that, it was November 11th, 2011. There was a big, in the occult community, there was a big thing of what's going to happen in 2011, November 11th. Kind of a weird date. Anyway, I was pretty astonished at what I found. So what I want to do is share all that in a series of probably 2 or maybe even 3 videos. This will be the first of those 3 or 2. So let's do a quick review. You had me curious about that hybrid solar eclipse. Um, so actually I was wrong. It was '05. There was one right here. You can see it, 2005. Before that, it was '86, '87. There was 2 of them, and it'd be kind of interesting to see what happened during this date. But anyway, this is the tetrad right here we're talking about. As you can see, Jewish feast day, Jewish feast day, Jewish feast day. This all happens right here. Now, as you can see, there's been other tetrads. However, they don't land on Jewish feast days, and several triads. All right, right through here. You can see this is 1969 all the way to 2019, and you can see the whole lunar cycle at this point. You got 4 sets of triads, and spanning from geez, 1971 to 83. You have one or two of them. Like I said, this would be kind of an interesting date to look at, 1986. Um, and this right here. Matter of fact, I might make a video on that and see. Anyway, um, and coupled with some strange stuff right here. I haven't really looked at this chart. It's kind of interesting. So, either way, I just wanted to see where that hybrid was, but I was wrong. 2005. All right. So what we have here, this just shows the breakdown of all the tetrads, all 8 of them, and I do find this interesting. I don't know if I put this on my last video or not, but we started off with the height of the Roman persecution during this time right here. The temple was destroyed in 70 A.D. All right, the tetrad didn't happen until I think it was 170, something like that is where this comes out. I'd have to look at the actual date, but you do the math, and from when the temple was destroyed to 2018, it's 1948. 1948, of course, is when they occupied the land. This group of tetrads here, the Islamic conquest, Muslim faith, becoming stronger, Roman Catholicism, the Spanish Inquisition, and then are we going to end with the Holocaust, what we began with, a Roman persecution to a new Roman persecution with the Antichrist leading it, and then you got the 19 and 48 years, 19 and 48 years. I mean, the signs are like screaming at me to of what's going on. So, real quick, I'm going to pull up these individually and just show the viewers so that you guys understand where I'm coming from. Okay, so just like I said, we're just going to review the last 3. Here we have Israel becomes a nation with the initiation of the Balfour Declaration, and then occupying a land, and then they get their capital in the 6-Day War, and here's the tetrad, the coming one, and so just a quick review for the new viewer, if there is any on there, of what we're actually talking about. Now, like I said, what I want to get into is this triad right here. And what I believe is this was God's warning triad. And did we miss it? Where and when? What was done during this year? What happened during this year? What does this actually mean? And we're going to break it down. Okay, in Joel 2:30 it says, "And I will show wonders in the heavens and the earth, blood, fire, and columns of smoke. The sun shall be turned to darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and awesome day of the Lord comes. And it shall come to pass that everyone who calls in the name of the Lord shall be saved." Now, what has always struck me with looking at this this coming tetrad, and I'll throw it up here again, is the Lord says, "I will show before the great day of the Lord." Well, if you go before it, it doesn't make any sense unless this is the before. So we'll go back to the verse, "And I will show wonders in the heavens and the earth, blood, moon, and fire, columns of smoke. Then sun shall be turned to darkness, and the moon into blood before." So before it happens, all this stuff's going to happen. So is this the before he's talking about? I seem to think so. And what you got to understand is God's time. God is out of frame of time. The Bible has been written, and prophecy is becoming fulfilled through it. In other words, he is outside of time. He has seen this already happen. And for a guy that builds everything in 7 days, 2011 to 2014 has got to be very, very quick. So what I come to understand is this is the before, and so that's how I approach it. And what I do is break down this year and then go from there. But we got to understand one thing: is wrong page. What is the day of the Lord? All right. So what I did is I did a search of the day of the Lord. And okay, here's a whole chapter on the day of the Lord, Isaiah 6, 2 through 22. And I'm not going to read this, but you can freeze frame it and read it as you want. But this is just one example. And then if you do a search, you find a bunch more, and I'll pull that up now. And so, if just for your reference, if you ever want to do a search on yourself on what's in the Bible about a certain thing, you can go to BibleGateway.com and type in the words you're looking for, and it'll pull up everything that's in there on that day. Anyway, so this is the day of the Lord, and as you can see, there's several verses in Isaiah that talk about it, and Isaiah has a lot of things that are coming to pass around this time. You have Isaiah 19 with Egypt, and Isaiah 17 with Damascus, which is looking pretty rough over in Syria right now. And it talks about all these different things. But anyway, this talks about the day of the Lord. What it is, He's coming with great wrath, anger, to make the land desolate. There is nothing good about the day. I also believe this is the day the rapture occurs. I believe it'll be a cataclysmic exchange. As this day unfolds, He is going to take His people out prior to it. You can search the Bible. We are not appointed wrath. There's several different references to a rapture prior to all this. I don't want to get into a rapture debate on this channel, but my belief is very strong that we will be removed prior to this. And you can just see all these days. On that day is also referenced in the Bible like this. Day of the Lord, on that day, in that day. And here's the verse we were looking at. Now, with my study, I found obviously the moon into blood and the sun into darkness. What I have a hard time finding is the complete verse where it talks about the smoke and the fire. So if you find anything, just post a comment under the video, let me know. But unexplained fire and unexplained smoke is kind of hard to pinpoint, but I'll keep looking. But anyway, you can see day of the Lord is near, it is near, hastily greatly, even the voice of the day of the Lord, the mighty man shall cry bitterly. I mean, there's nothing good about this day coming. But He warns us, and we should all be ready for this day. There's actually another page even. So, okay. Alright, so what we have here is a timeline of the 3 blood moons and partial solar eclipses for 2011, which actually starts in 2010 and goes through those that year. And what I've done is I've marked them. They're right here, the dates right above them, and I've inserted different news events that had happened throughout that time. And I've got a little narrative that I'll read about each news article and the significance. You can decide if it's significant or not. I believe it is. Let's start with this sign right here. This is December 21st, 2010. Was a blood moon, lunar eclipse, and it was also on the winter solstice. And I'm going to read an article real quick to you that discusses this sign right here. On December 21st, 2010, a total lunar eclipse appeared over the North American continent on the winter solstice. For a total length of 72 minutes, an eerie red shadow darkened the moon and cast a red-amber glow over America. Throughout history, it has been known that the lunar eclipse or blood moons are ominous signs of warning to the people of God or Israel, while solar eclipses have been ominous sign warning to the nations. The last time a lunar eclipse occurred in the fashion was 372 years ago in the year 1638, when the first American colonies were just forming. In fact, The lunar eclipse on a winter solstice of December 21st, 1638 was the first recorded astronomical event in the United States. Um, that's pretty amazing. Um, the lunar eclipse falls on the date of the northern. Um, how rare is that? Total lunar eclipses in the northern sky are fairly common. There have been 3 of them in the past 10 years alone. Um, However, on a winter solstice, it is highly unusual. Jeff Chester of the U.S. Naval Observatory inspected a list of eclipses going back 2,000 years. Since year 1, I can only find one previous instance of an eclipse matching the same calendar date as the solstice, and that is 1638, December 21st. And, I mean, it doesn't get much rarer than that. But if I stopped there and said it didn't get any stranger, um, then this wouldn't be really a good channel. So, with that, strangely enough, the first recorded earthquake in the U.S. also occurred that same year as 1638. Um, that is pretty rare. Um, Not only that, when this solstice occurs and this moon occurs, it ends up at the tip of the constellation Orion's club. Some people have this as a spear, or I mean a sword. In this case, it's a club, the artwork. So it even just goes beyond rare as far as what we're looking at. So the moon went to total eclipse right at the point of the constellations Orion's upheld arm, which wields the weapon. Could this be a signal for the God's people should be soon to put up a fight? This has all come from the article. This isn't me speaking, but I will read it. We should note that Orion has since been, ancient times, as depicted as a mighty hunter. And I've done a little study on Orion, and I'll go ahead and read my notes here. Orion means the triumph and the brightness of his coming, the strong one, coming forth as light, regal. The star on his right foot is the foot that crushes. That's in reference to Genesis 3:15, of the seed of the serpent, and the Redeemer crushing the seed of Satan. And in his left foot, he has the star Syath, which means bruised, meaning Jesus will suffer a slight bruise from Satan, but nothing to be worried about. In the end, Jesus will have the final death blow to Satan. And in the shoulder of Orion is Bellatrix, which means coming quickly. So, pretty amazing sign just to kick this whole thing off. We have quick review. 2010, December 21st, winter solstice day. We have Orion, which is the Redeemer, the coming Redeemer with all those stars and their meanings. We have a total lunar eclipse on the winter solstice day, which has only been recorded one other time in 1638. And in that year, 1638, was also the first recorded earthquake. So, and to boot, we have the full lunar eclipse happening at the tip of the spear of Orion, or I'm sorry, I said it again, the tip of the club of Orion. Amazing sign. So that's how we start this off. And it's going to end just as dramatic when we get to the 2011 November 11th sign. So let's look a little bit closer at some of these news events, and I'm going to breeze through them. I'm going to let you soak it in. One thing I tried to look for when researching this was mass animal deaths. Like, when did they officially start? Was there a actual starting date? And there really isn't. There's as much as I tried to find something to prove my my study, I really couldn't justify saying that in 2011 mass animal deaths started. It's just not feasible. However, there was some things that happened. I can't drum it up to a specific phenomena, but there have been other mass deaths prior to this year. I can say in 2011 they have drastically picked up the pace. In the last week of December, 83,000 dead drumfish washed upon a 20-mile stretch in the Arkansas River, about 100 miles west of Beebe, Arkansas. Shortly before midnight on New Year's Eve, right here, Between 5,000 and 3,000 red-winged blackbirds fell from the sky in the same place, BV, Arkansas. So we have dead fish and dead birds in the same place. Um, so very strange phenomena there. And they were also repeated the following year. So again, in 2011 over here, we have dead birds reported again, the same kind. And that the dead birds on this side being 5,000 over here and 3 to 5,000 here. Same place, BV, Arkansas. Um, Between December 28th, 2010 and January 3rd, 2010, 100 tons of dead fish washed ashore Brazilian coast. On January 3, more than 500 starlings, red-winged blackbirds, and sparrows fell at Pointe de Parish, Louisiana. Or, I'm sorry, Coupe de Parish. And January 14th, approximately 200 cows were found dead in Stockton, Wisconsin. Um, and people often ask me, are these dead animals in the Bible? Is it mass deaths in the Bible? And it says in Hosea 4:2, by swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break out, and blood touch blood. And the prophecy continues, therefore shall the land mourn, and everyone that dwelleth therein shall languish, with the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven, yea, the fishes of the sea shall also be taken away. So yes, it is in the Bible, and it's something that has drastically increased and keeps getting worse. And um, it's there. I believe God owns all life. If you ask me, God owns all the life, and they're His to take, and He's taking them, to show us, what is going on. This is for our benefit. So let's continue. So I wanted to point out the Orion thing first and the winter solstice before I went to the Arab Spring, just because this is so significant. But just prior to this, on the 17th of December, right in here, is when the Arab Spring began. And it began, if you haven't read or don't know, Tariq al-Tayyib Mohammed Bouazizi on the 29th of March 19. That's when he was born, 1984, until 4 January, where he finally died, was a street vendor who set himself on fire on December 17th, 2010, in protest for the confiscation of his wares and the harassment and humiliation that he had reportedly was inflicted upon him by municipal and other official, police and whatnot. His act became a catalyst for the Tunisian Revolution, which later spread to the Arab Spring, inciting demonstrations and riots throughout Tunisia in protest of social and political issues in the country. The public's anger and violence intensified following his death, leading then President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali to step down on 14 January 2011 after 23 years of power. So the Arab Spring begins during this time and has done nothing but intensify and capture thousands of lives. And in fact, the death toll in Syria right now is above 93,000 people. They're losing an average of 5,000 people a month in Syria alone. So, the media unfortunately has us focused on other very trivial things, and while this is going on, uh, it's genocide over there, people, and it's getting ridiculous. But so the Arab Spring begins right before this sign, which once again is very interesting. So officially on the 18th of January, the Arab Spring spreads from Tunisia, and it goes into Egypt and Libya. And if you want to know where some of these places are in the Bible, you can find Egypt in Isaiah 19, Syria in Isaiah 17, in Ezekiel 33, chapter 30, verse 3, you can find Libya. Um, I don't have her on here, but on the 8th of January that year, Representative Gabrielle Gifford is shot in the head at a public event, 2011, along with other 18 people who were shot during a constituent meeting held in a supermarket parking lot in Casas Arizona in the Tucson metropolitan area. 6 people died, including Arizona District Court Chief Judge John Roll. So another prophetic event. That brings us to February 2011. Egyptian President Hassani Mubarak resigns. On June 2nd, 2012, Mubarak was sentenced to life imprisonment in an Egyptian court, so he resigns here and goes to court during this time frame here. After sentencing, he was reported to have suffered a series of health issues, and as of 20 June 2012, multiple sources said that he was very ill, and reporting that he was in a coma, others stating that he had a stroke and had been on life support. He had been in office since 1981. Very long time to be in office. And that brings us to our earthquakes here. On the 22nd of February, we have, let me look here, I'm sorry. 22nd of February, New Zealand earthquake hits the town of, get this, Christchurch. It was the second largest town in New Zealand, and it killed 185 people. The magnitude was 6.3, and it was also the deadliest earthquake since 1931. Which brings us to March 11th, the Japan earthquake. Now, Japan is hit by a massive earthquake and tsunami. It is the 5th most powerful earthquake in the world to date, with a magnitude of 9.0. As a result of the 12th, there were the 12th of March, there were 16,000 deaths, 7,000 injured, and 250,000 buildings had collapsed. The tsunami caused 7 nuclear meltdowns in 3 different reactors. The aftershock totaled over 1,000, over 1,000 separate earthquakes, with 80 of them with a magnitude of 6.0. As I started doing this report, I noticed a lot of 11th and 22nd dates. And just to recap, Hassani on the 11th of February resigns. Japan is hit on the 11th of March. And you had the 22nd, New Zealand, of February, was hit with their earthquake. And I'll be honest, I started looking a little deeper then. Is this going to be a recurring thing every month? And it wasn't. However, it does happen throughout the year with those dates. The big thing was the earthquake in Japan, happening, directly on the 11th of March. You have these 11 and 22s, but it wasn't throughout the whole year. Although I did look, and there's a couple things here that we'll talk about when we get to that point. But let's keep going. So next was the tornado season we had, and there's 2 different dates. There's the 14th through the 16th, and the 25th through the 28th. And the 25th through the 28th killed 324 people. The 14th through the 16th killed 38 people, and so just a huge, swath of earthquakes. There was 178 confirmed tornadoes, 16 states affected. So severe storms across the southern United States. We had on the 22nd, which there's the 22 again, anti-government rallies in the suburbs of Damascus and the towns of Homs in Dera ended with police opening fire on demonstrators. Now, you got to picture this, people. These are police opening fire on demonstrators. I mean, what would you do if our military or police did that in America? Open fire on your own people. According to the local human rights organization, 72 protesters were killed, 200 injured. Through official numbers of victims greatly differ. All right, so demonstrations now must obtain official permission before going ahead. Human rights activists are calling on President Assad to distance themselves from the security forces. And so the 22nd of April, right in here, I didn't put that on there, but severe anti-government rallies in Damascus. So that was one thing I did find on the 22nd. Um, you could say I was digging, maybe, but nonetheless, quite a few people died at the hands of their own government, which is pretty significant if you ask me. May 1st, Osama bin Laden was killed in Abbottabad, Pakistan. So everyone knows who he is, by the elite SEAL Team 6. And on the 22nd of May, which, didn't put it on here, but another 22nd event, Joplin, Missouri tornado was a catastrophic EF5 multiple vortex tornado that struck Joplin, Missouri late afternoon on Sunday, May 22nd, 2011. It was a larger part of a late May tornado outbreak, which reached a maximum width of nearly 1 mile during its path through the southern part of the city. Rapidly intensified and tracked eastward across the city, and then continued through different counties, and ended up killing 158 people, injuring some 1,100, and caused damage of about $2.8 billion. Deadliest tornado to strike the United States since 1947. So, can you say I'm reaching for these 22nd 11 events? I don't think so. There's quite a few of them here during different months, and then some months don't have them. But I do think it's something definitely to pay attention to. All right, we go to June, and I kid you not, I could not find really anything significant in June. Now, if you can prove me wrong and say, find me some big news in June of 2011, then I will stand corrected. But when I got to June, it was blank. I think, I don't know, China put a freeze on something or whatever, but I don't know. There was not much I could find in June um, comparable to anything that was going on over here. It was almost like it just stopped for a month. And, it was kind of ridiculous. We get to July 20th, and famine is officially declared that day by the United Nations. Um, it officially started July 20th, and has been going on through 2012, and it hasn't gotten any better. It is the worst drought in 60 years. Um, it's caused a severe food crisis across Somalia, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Kenya, and threatened the livelihood of 9.5 million people. There's been refugees, in crowded, unsanitary camps, severe malnutrition. So the bottom line is, in the past 60 years, there hasn't been a worse drought in Africa. And that brings us to 22nd July. On 22nd July, a low pressure formed in the East Philippines, and the system gradually drifted west over the next few days, and on late 24 July, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center started monitoring the system as a tropical depression. Early the next day, Japan Meteorological Agency upgraded the area of low pressure to a tropical depression. Beginning at the end of July, triggered the landfall tropical storm Nakten. Flooding soon spread throughout the provinces of northeastern and central Thailand, along the Mekong and Chao and Phaira river basins. Resulted in a total of 815 deaths, 3 missing, 13.6 million people affected. 65 of Thailand's 77 provinces were declared flood disaster zones, and over 20,000 square kilometers of farmland was damaged. The worst flooding has been described as the worst flooding yet in terms of amount of water and people affected. So that takes care of the Thailand floods. The next thing on the timeline is the credit down rating, which was on August 5th. Credit rating agency Standard & Poor, which is S&P, downgraded its credit rating of the U.S. federal government from AAA outstanding to AA plus, which is excellent, on August 5th, 2011. This is the first time the government was given a below AAA credit rating. S&P had announced a negative outlook on the AAA rating in April of 2011. The downgrade AA plus occurred 4 days after the 112th. The United States Congress voted to raise the debt ceiling by means of the Budget Control Act of 2011 on 2 August 2011. And that brings us to Occupy Wall Street, which was September 17th. Occupy Wall Street began as an organized protest in the Zuccotti Park in New York City's financial district. The movement quickly spread to other cities across the United States, including Boston, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Occupy Wall Street defined itself as a group of activists to stand against corporate greed, social inequality, and an enormous gap between the rich and the poor. On October 20th, Muammar Gaddafi, his disposed leader of Libya, died on October 20, 2011 during the Battle of Gaddafi. Was found hiding in a culvert west of Sirte and captured by the National Transitional Council forces. He was killed shortly afterwards. The NTC initially claimed he died from injuries sustained in a firefight when loyalist forces attempted to free him, although video of his last moments show rebel fighters beating him before he was shot dead. November 8th, right here, in its latest protest in Iran, the IAEA says the research includes computer models that could only be used to develop a nuclear bomb. In other words, the International Atomic Energy Association comes out and says Iran is building, or does not have a peaceful nuclear program. Correspondents say that this is an International Atomic Energy Agency's toughest report on Iran to date. Tehran condemned the findings as politically motivated. This report is unbalanced, unprofessional, and prepared with political motivation and under political pressure by mostly the United States. And that brings us to our Philippine typhoons. 15 December in the Philippines, catastrophic flash flooding triggered by the Washi resulted in at least 1,268 fatalities. In post-analysis, the Japan Meteorological Agency upgraded Washi from a tropical storm to a severe tropical storm. Brought 10 hours of torrential rains that triggered disastrous flooding over Mindanao, an area that rarely experiences tropical cyclones. More than 200 millimeters, which is 7.9 inches of rain, was reported in places where rivers were already flooded. During the overnight hours, 100 people were killed as floodwaters and landslides destroyed homes along mountainsides. In some locations, the floodwaters rose 11 feet in less than an hour. Residents impacted by these floodwaters were forced to seek refuge on the roofs amidst 90-mile-an-hour winds, which is 55-mile-an-hour winds, 90-kilometer. The mayor of Iligan regarded the floods as the worst in history. More than 2,000 people were rescued from the hardest hit areas. And that's where I'm going to leave it for right now. So take it for what it's worth. You know, the 11/22 news reports. And, you know, if you can find something on this date, by all means, please post it in the comments box and we'll talk about it. But I did not see anything. And I am limited on resources where I'm at. I have just the internet, which is a good resource, but you know I don't have anything else. That's it. So what we're going to talk about in the next video is we are going to examine the 11/11/11 phenomena, sign, whatever you want to call it, a little bit more closely. And believe it or not, we are going to examine this right here a little bit more closely. But at least now you have a general idea of 2011 looking back hindsight's 2020. So we look back and we can see that there was definitely, with this and the winter solstice and, you know, the earthquake, this 1638. I have to look at my notes, but the lunar eclipse occurs at the tip of the, it just doesn't get any more prophetic, I don't think. So definitely a year in hindsight to look at as a warning from God. Um, so just thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next probably 2 videos to accompany 2011. God bless. Take care.